So my name is Chris Daly, and I'm the Assistant Dean for Campus Life here at Emerson College. Part of my role is overseeing the directors of Intercultural Student Affairs and the Center for Spiritual Life here. So that's a piece of it, and another piece of it is working with our divisional Social Justice Committee. We developed a 5-year strategic plan around diversity, equity, and inclusion for the Student Affairs Division at Emerson College. So we're trying to move that forward at the staff level so that our efforts trickle down at the student level as well. We would like to be doing so many initiatives with our students, with our staff, around diversity, equity, and inclusion, building people's skills, building their knowledge, building their capacity to engage in conversations around these issues. We have so many ideas for initiatives we could be doing, but we just don't have the capacity to do them all. Talking to you was a moment for us to take a step back and think, okay, we could add to our capacity in some ways by pulling in some outside help. And we'd worked with some outside consultants before on DEI initiatives with, I would say, mixed results, different degrees of success, different degrees of impact. Some of the things we really liked, before we even got on the phone with you or on the Zoom call with you, we loved your website. I have to say, we went to your website and there was something about the aesthetic of your website and the words on the website, but that spoke to a sense of real creativity, color, vibrancy, youth, in a way that we really responded to, I think. And we saw that you guys were media makers. You're filmmakers as well, and Emerson has a huge visual and media arts program, film and TV program. So we thought there could be, something that's simpatico here. I think we got a sense of, okay, here are two relatively young people who actually, in some ways, that piece was important. You were bridging the gap age-wise, I think, between some of us on the administrator side of the house and our undergraduate students. We thought that you would be able to speak to our students, our undergraduate students in particular, in a way that would be more compelling than some of us could. Frankly, your identities were also important. You presented as two men of color, and were able to we knew that you would be able to connect with our students in a way that sometimes those of us, again, who are white administrators have a harder time doing when we're talking about these issues. So we thought that was important. We got the sense that you were going to create spaces for our students that they would actually be able to move into and have the kinds of conversations that we are always hoping they're going to be able to have, but that, again, sometimes we just struggle with finding the right ways to have those conversations, the right formats, the right times, the right content, the right questions to ask, the right facilitators to have up in front of the group. So we felt really good about the two of you and what you would bring and what a partnership might lead to. So when we first started talking with you, I know we were exploring different capacity gaps that we thought we had. So Faces of Emerson is our program about diversity, equity, and inclusion for brand new students who are undergraduates at Emerson College during the week that they arrive for orientation before classes start. We've done this program for a number of years. We've tried it in all different ways. We've tried it in big theaters, we've tried it in small rooms, we've tried it with staff facilitating, we've tried it with students facilitating, we've tried it with a combination, and it just wasn't sticking. So you were able to reframe this for us. There were a number of entry points where we thought we could partner with Honesty Hour, but this was the one that we felt was going to be most impactful, and I think right now we're feeling like that's true, that's the case, and it's working. The year before Honesty Hour worked with us on Faces of Emerson. I think we had a slide deck of about 35 slides, each of which could have been its own workshop. We were also trying to prepare 45 or 50 staff facilitators to present that content, and 45 or 50, well, really more like 100 student orientation leaders. The program now, is much more manageable, I think, in terms of preparing the facilitators, the orientation student leaders to do it, in terms of the new students actually participating in it. And it's conversational. It's interactive rather than being didactic. It was so amazing to see students during our January orientation in these groups of maybe 10 or 12 students down on the floor with big sheets of Post-it chart paper, talking about what is intersectionality, talking about what is equity, and making drawings and scribbling in the corners and having these side conversations and laughing, but actually starting to share things about themselves and disclose things about themselves that never would have happened in the way that we were doing it before. And they got into some really serious stuff. Some of them talked about, having multiracial backgrounds. Some of them talked about some of their disabilities or accessibility concerns, issues they were having. Some of them talked about mental health issues. Some of them talked about religious differences and their concerns about stepping into the space with those. I feel pretty confident that since those conversations started and were generated by the work that you did in the most recent orientation, that the groundwork was then laid for the conversations to continue when the students went off to lunch, and when they do go off to their dorm room. So, that was a 180 is what I would say in terms of the before and after. It's great. It's pretty much what we would want a working relationship to be with a consultant, with a partner, with an outside partner, or an inside partner, really. Some things that have been very valuable is that, number one, you guys are fun to work with. You're professional, but you're also just a pleasure. Every time we see on our calendar that we have a call with you, I think we get excited about the call because we know we're going to have some good conversations and we're going to have some laughs. We've been able to go back and forth on ideas, on curriculum content, on lesson plans, on formats. You have been so open to, and not just willing, but really wanting to solicit the input of students, of other staff members who've helped to facilitate these workshops. Every time I talk to you, you're like, well, who else can we bring in? Who else would be able to give us some input and some feedback on this? You guys had developed a plan for what was going to happen, what did happen during our fall orientation session. And as that day was happening and we had, dozens of rooms of people having these conversations, you guys were walking around, listening, taking notes, checking out the scene and the vibe in each of the rooms. And then you came back and we debriefed at the end of that day. We had a debrief conversation a couple weeks later. And as we met leading up to January, then you were shifting, you were reflecting, thinking about what worked, what didn't work. I think we were doing that on our end too. But you really were able to take what you had seen and the feedback that you had gotten from us in survey format, in sort of discussion format with, again, a variety of stakeholders, and modify the program so that it kept the good parts and moved away from some of the stuff that was less effective or just we didn't have time for. You're not necessarily just coming in and delivering the content yourselves or facilitating yourselves. You're helping us to build the capacity of our staff members and our student leaders, our orientation leaders, to facilitate these conversations as well. Well, if a colleague called me up and was asking for a reference, I would say, hire these guys. That they have been a fantastic investment for us, but just it's been a fantastic and continues to be a really fantastic working relationship. I like you guys. To me and Jim, we like you guys. When I see you, you show up on campus to do things, we hug. You came to an event that we had here on campus that had nothing to do with the work you've been contracted to do with us, but it was a cool event. It was a Martin Luther King weekend event, and you were here for that. So again, I feel like we have built a relationship, and that doesn't always happen when we're working with outside vendors. I think for me, one of the things that has been most powerful is that when you step into a room and are talking to our students, you have this whole set of content knowledge and experience and professional experience married to this ability to connect with our students. In totality, we just are really enjoying our working relationship with you, in addition to finding a lot of value in it, and I'm hoping that it continues for a while. You guys do ask us to do a chunk of work that then helps you do your work better in service to us. This is not, at least for us, has not been the kind of relationship where we've said, hey, we sign the contract and then boom, show up on the day of and do your thing. It's not about that at all. It really is about an ongoing conversation and a process of discovery. You trying to figure out what our culture is, what our priorities are, how we do business here, how we do our work, who our students are. That takes time to figure out, right? And you've spent a lot of time with us. And so again, that's meant we've had to spend time with you, but I feel like it's been time very well spent. Other folks who may be thinking about working with you should know that, if you want to be serious about this work, you have to be willing to invest time and energy. For an organization that maybe hasn't done too much work yet with its students or staff, I feel like you guys would be able to come in and help them do some baseline work and think about what they wanted to do and how they wanted to do it. For institutions that are already on the path of doing some substantial work, I think you can help them take it to the next level, and whether that's by adding capacity or whether that's by helping them think through what they're doing and how they're doing it, and maybe bring a new lens, a new angle to that thinking, whether it's fresh ideas, whether it's bringing in, again, that sense of fun and play and the seriousness of the work tempered with or married to, this is rooted in relationships and it's rooted in humans and connectedness, and they want to get people into a space and a place where they can do that, right? And it's not just intellectualized, and it's not about people sort of calling each other out, but it is more about calling each other in. I have the sense that you would be able to meet institutions wherever they are at in the kind of spectrum of working on DEI issues with students, with staff or faculty, and doing that in a respectful way, and doing that in a way that really hears what the institution is looking for and doesn't just take a pre-planned, pre-formatted model and slapping it on there, that you're really able to customize and work with a group to figure out what it is that they need and try to make that happen.